Alrighty, so we're going to start at the top here. Alright, problem number 1. Okay, we are going to have to move fairly quickly here, so I need your attention. Need everything else put away. Okay, so solve by completing the square. So, completing the square it's a lot of steps, but what you have to remember is just what are the big things. You don't have to walk through it step by step. So first thing you need to look and see, okay, does it have an A? Well, is A anything but 1? In this case, no, it's not. Then I have to move C. So you've got x squared minus 10x equals negative 21. Okay? Technically, some people teach it, you don't even have to move C. I always just do because I think it makes life easier. Okay? Now I got to find new C. So I take B divided by 2. Square it. And now what do I do with that number? Add it to both sides.
I was gonna get it. I was trying to.
Okay? Now, the factoring. You can either AC this, the left side, or remember the shortcut. That it always is going to factor to x and then b over 2 squared. Well, b over 2 is always what's inside the parentheses that we're going to square after we divide by 2. So in this case, x minus 5 squared. If you prefer to AC that, you definitely can. 5 times 5 is 25. Negative 5 plus negative 5 is negative 10. So you can work backwards and write it as 2 factors and then simplify it down to 1. So you can just do AC on that if you want. And then that's equal to 4. Okay? From here, we have square root both sides. I drew the square root, so what do I need to put in front of my answer on the right? Plus and minus and 2. Now I add 5. So x equals 5 plus 2, 7. And 5 minus 2, 3. So there's number 1. Okay. Now, common question that I get. Can I check my answer by factoring or quadratic to make sure I've done it correctly? Of course. Okay? Okay? You can check your answers by any other method you want. But if I ask for completing the square and you don't solve it by completing the square, you're not going to get full credit for the problem.
We get half credit?
Well, it's on a rubric for completing the square, so that'd be a 1.
The other one I complete the score, you don't just stay a while.
All right. Second one with completing the square. We got to keep moving. All right. So A in this case is not 1. So what's my first step?
Divide by 3.
Divide everything by 3. I do that. G squared minus 4g equals negative 3. G squared minus 4g equals negative 3. Okay? C's already on the other side. So what's my next step?
The B thing.
B over 2 and find my new B over 2 squared is 4. So I add that to both sides now. G squared minus 4g plus 4 equals negative 3 plus 4. It's just b over 2 and squared. That's what this is. Then I add it to both sides. Now I factor the left side. B over 2 was, again, number in the parentheses. In this case, negative 2 So it's g minus 2 squared. Another way of looking at it, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. So you're good there. How's the right side?
1.
1. Now at this point, it's a perfect square trinomial, so you can just solve. Square root. I get g minus 2 equals, I drew the square root, so the right side becomes plus and minus 1. Because again, it's a quadratic, you should always get 2 answers. So g equals 2 plus and minus 1, so g equals 2 plus 1, 3, 2 minus 1.
Wait, why is it positive 2? It's just not.
Because I added 2 over.
But wouldn't that,
Yeah,
wouldn't that be? Wait.
2 plus 1 or 2 minus.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just got negative.
Okay. Questions on completing the square?
I literally.
An example of one for completing the square. Yeah.
What problem are you doing?
He wants an example for completing the square. All right. 3.
I get stuck because the negatives are under the, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, solve the problem using quadratic. Determine the type of roots and the discriminant value. So, first thing we're going to do is find the discriminant. So A, B, C. You have to remember what the discriminant is. The discriminant is just B squared minus 4AC.
Oh.
It's the part underneath the radical in the quadratic formula. And again, you are expected to know that. Period. If you're taking the ACT this weekend, you also are expected to know that. So it's a good habit to get yourself in just knowing that formula. You'll be expected to know it in calculus next year as well if you take calc. Okay, so what is B? Negative 2. A is 4, C is 9. So if I work this out, negative 2 squared is positive 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 9.
I get negative.
Okay, if you do not put it in parentheses on your calculator and square it, it will be wrong. You have to put negative 2 in parentheses. Otherwise, you will get negative 4. So 54, that's 144. So my discriminant is negative 140. We will here in a second, yep. So the discriminant is negative 140, which is less than 0, which tells me then I have 2 complex roots. Because remember, if your discriminant is positive, you have 2 positive roots. If your discriminant equals 0, you have 1 positive root or real root. And then if it's negative, then you have 2 complex roots. Which means both of your answers have I in them.
So we have to memorize that part too.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Now, you've done everything under the radical already. So you don't have to do that math. So now when I plug in, opposite of B, well, B was negative 2, so it's 2. Plus and minus the square root of negative 140, because we just found that with our discriminant. That's this. Okay. Over 2a. 2 times 4. So I have 2 plus and minus. Well, what do I have to do with the square root of 140?
Okay.
Got to cake it and pull the I out. So I got an I out there, but now I also have to simplify that radical. So you put 140 in the box. What goes into 140? 2. 2 and 70. 2 and 35. 5 and 7. 7 and 1. Looking for pairs. There's one set of 2s. 5 and 7 don't have pairs, so what do we do with leftovers? Put them back in the fridge, right? So it's 2 square root of 35. Now, if you gave me this as your answer, I would accept it. But is that truly in lowest terms? What can I take out of all of them? 2. So I have 1 plus and minus I square roots of 35 over 4. That is your final answer. So for that question, it has 3 answers. The discriminant value, which is negative 140. The types of roots, which in this case is too complex. So again, you take your discriminant value. If it's positive, you have 2 real roots. If it's equal to 0, you have 1 real root, and it's a double root. And then if it's negative, which in this case it is, you know your 2 answers have to include I. There's only 3 possibilities there. Positive, negative, or 0. And if you think about it logically, it should make sense. Okay? Because if your discriminant 0, you're adding and subtracting 0 from the same number. So it's not going to change. We good on that? All right. Okay. Solve the following by the quadratic formula. Okay, I'm going to go quick through this because we've already done one full example. So now this one, I did not ask you to find the discriminant or... Did I? I did. You're right. I'm a liar. All right, b squared. So negative 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 28. 9 minus 112, negative 112. Minus a negative becomes plus a positive. So I get 121. So my discriminant is 121. There's my first answer. Now, 121 is positive. So what type of roots do I have? 2 real roots. There's my second answer. And then I just got to solve now. So opposite of B. Plus or minus. Square root of 121 over 2. So I get 3 plus and minus. Square root of 121 is 11. That's all over 2. So 3 plus 11 is 14. Divided by 2 is 7. There's 1x. 3 minus 11 is negative 8. Divided by 2 is negative 4. There's the second. Inspired that completing the square problem should get that same answer. Right. Good? Questions on quadratic. So those are the questions that fall under the first standard on the test. Okay? Can you solve a quadratic by any method? Okay, that's the first standard. Second standard is I can solve polynomials to find solutions. So as you see here, there's 3 problems under that standard. Okay, you have to know how to do remainder theorem, Descartes, and synthetic. Well, you don't have to, sorry. So I should say remainder theorem, Descartes, and solving for roots. Sorry. All right, so let's do number 5. So I have 2x cubed minus 3x squared plus x. And that's all divided by x minus 1. Use remainder theorem to find whether or not it's a factor. If it is, state that, and then find the other factor. So, how do I do that? Okay, you put 1 in the box, right? We're doing synthetic. Okay, so I have 2, negative 3, 1. What do I have to have? 0. Because again, every power has to be represented. From the highest power, which in this case is 3, to the lowest power, which is a constant, or 0. Okay? Bring the 2 down. 2 times 1 is 2. And add. Negative 1. And add. 0. And add. So if you happen to not put that last term there, you lucked out in this problem. Okay? So, is x minus 1 a root? Yes. So, there's one of, how many total roots should the problem have? 3. So we found 1. So now we can just work off the depressed polynomial to find the other 2. Again, start at the remainder line and work out. Constant, x squared. So I have 2x squared minus x equals 0. Why do I not have to have a third term there? Because 0. How do I factor something that has 2 terms? Take out an x, what they have in common. So I pull an x out, and I get 2x minus 1. Can I do any more factoring to that? No. So what do I have to do to those 2? Just set them equal to 0. So x equals 0. There's your second term. 2x minus 1 equals 0. Solve for x. 2x equals 1. So x equals 1/2. So there are your 3 roots. 0, half, and 1.
Could you do
You could have done, yeah. So you lucked out in this one because of everything factors. Yes, you could have done quadratic formula and just did c is 0. Is that what you did, Jim? Yeah. Yeah. I personally like to factor wherever I can, but yeah, you could do quadratic. You could have done completing the square if you really wanted to, but no, we didn't want to work with fractions that whole time. All right, number 6. We got to keep moving here. List all factors of the following polynomial. Yep. Question was asked, is this where we use P over Q? Yes. Okay, if it just says to list all possible factors and then find them, that's when you just do P over Q and then test until you find some that work. So, what's my P in this case?
6.
Negative 6. What's my Q?
1.
So, plus and minus 1, plus and minus 2, plus and minus 3, plus and minus 6. And I was nice and only made the bottom 1. So, all the possible roots. So, the list of all roots. So, there is all the possible roots. There's 8 of them. But again, the highest power is 3. So how many do I have to find using rational root test?
3.
Just 1.
1.
And then what can I do to the other 2? Quadratic or AC, right? Where should we start? 1? Negative 1. Okay? 1, 2, negative 5, negative 6. Bring the 1 down. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. And add is 1. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. And add negative 6. Times negative 1 is positive 6. And add is 0. So x equals negative 1 is a root. Okay? Write this out. Constant, x squared. So x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. Two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to 1. 2 and 3. X squared plus 2x. Nope. Plus 3x minus 2x minus 6. Split x plus 3, negative 2, x plus 3, x minus 2, x plus 3. So my roots are 2 and negative.
Yesterday you should have seen me hilarious struggle us. I could not subtract -1 from -9. I was so confused. I was like, Mary, where are you getting -6? I thought it was 4. I was like freaking out.
We good?
Yeah.
Wait.
It's just the recent stuff that we've been doing.
Good, bad, ugly?
This is the only part I'm good. No, that's too much. This is the only part I'm good at.
Number 8 or 7. Okay, find all positive and negative roots, then find all roots of the polynomial. So, this case, have to do P over Q, have to do Descartes, and then have to find them all. So, we do Descartes first. Positive, 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 negative. So there's one sign change. Tells us there's one positive real root. And again, for when we do negative x, what powers do we change? The odds. So negative 1x cubed plus 7x squared minus 7x minus 15. 1, 2. So that tells us there is 2 negative or 0 negative. So that tells us we for sure have one positive, we might have 2 negatives, or we have 2 imaginary. Right?
Are you gonna make us find them?
Huh?
Are you gonna make us find them?
I will make sure there's not imaginaries on the test.
Let's go.
Okay? Now I list all my possible roots. So it's 15 over 1. Plus minus 1, 3, 5, and 15. Which one do we know works? 1. So 1, 7, 7, negative 15. 8. You sure? Oh, you're right. All right. 1 does work. So we have that. So you've got x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Now I need to find 2 numbers. Multiply to 15 and add to 8.
3 and 5.
3 and 5. So 3x plus 5x plus 15. X plus 3, 5, x plus 3, x plus 5, x plus 3. So it's negative 5
-3.
and negative 3.
And 1.
And 1. 1 positive, 2 negative.
Gotcha.
Alright, no, this is one of you.
And this is where we got confused.
I just did this for
Okay,
I didn't do it.
number 8.
This is the only one I don't
With
know.
the foil and
Okay, so
I don't know how to start without.
now first thing we have to do is find least common denominator, which again, you're looking for the different denominators. Well, in this case, are any of them the same?
No.
No. So your LCD in this case is 6 times 2m plus 2 times 3m minus 3. It's all three of them.
Oh, you just have to put that on.
And you just have to put that on top of all three terms. Because then it lets you cancel out the parts you need to cancel. Does that make sense? So looking for denominator parts that are the same. If they aren't the same, it's just all of them. So now I multiply everything by all three.
Why didn't you just cancel the stuff out right away?
Because he likes to write it all down.
He likes it, okay. Alright, and then that's over 3m minus 3. So, you write it all out. Now you cancel what they have in common. First one, 6 and 6. So that leaves 5 times 2m plus 2 times 3m minus 3. The right side, the first one, 2m minus 2. So I've got 2m times 6 times 3m minus 3. Last one. I have 6 times 2m plus 2.
Oh.
You combine two.
Probably just need to get a
And
one.
then multiply two.
Yep,
So do you FOIL first? Or
yep,
do you...
it doesn't matter. I'm going to multiply the 5 through. So I've got 10m plus 10 times 3m minus 3. So if I FOIL, I get 30m squared. First times first. Outside, negative 30m. Inside, 30m. Last, negative 30. What's going to cancel?
The 30m squared plus the 30m.
The 30m squared plus 30m. So the middle cancels, so I just have that left on the left. So that and that cancel each other out. So that's the left side. Okay? The first term on the right, 2m times 6 is 12m. Now, if I want to distribute, 12m times 3m is 36m squared. 12m times negative 3 is negative 36m. The last one, minus 6 times 2m is 12m. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. You have to make sure you carry that negative out front of the 6 all the way through. Now I got to move everything to one side. Or I'm going to simplify first and then move everything to one side. So, left side is good. Right side, 36m squared is by itself. Negative 36m minus 12 is negative 48m. And then the minus 12. Now I'm going to move, I hate doing this, but I'm going to move everything to the right. So I've got 0 equals.
Why are you moving to the right?
Just because there's more terms on the right.
Oh.
It doesn't really matter. I'm going to subtract 30m squared. So I get 6m squared. And then I'm going to add 30. Minus 48m plus 18.
You can
I don't worry about it.
Okay, you can
factor by.
factor, you can do AC, whatever you want to do here. I'm going to pull a 6 out. All three terms have a 6 in them. So I get m squared minus 8m plus 3. This one does not work by AC. You're going to have to do quadratic.
Did you take?
Huh?
Yeah, never mind. Being stupid.
Oh, okay. So opposite of B, plus and minus. B squared minus 4 times A times C. All over 2 times A. Now notice I do not use the 6 as any of them because I pulled that out of all of them. I pulled that out of all of them. So I've got 8 plus and minus. Square root of 64 minus 12 over 2. So I get 8 plus and minus the square root of 52 over 2. And that will simplify. So we got a cake 52. It's 2 and 26, 2 and 13,
Is it negative?
13 and 1. Say what?
Isn't it?
It's opposite of
Just
B.
kidding. Just kidding.
Pull out a 2. So my answer here is M equals 8 plus and minus 2 square roots of 13 over 2. Divide everything by 2. 4 plus and minus the square root of 13. Okay? And if I give you an answer that is not a whole number, you do not have to check it.
So what happens to those ones?
It just goes away.
Oh, okay.
I just basically divided everything by 6.
That hurt my head.
Wait, so the 6 goes away?
Yep. Okay, that was the hardest, in my opinion, the hardest problem on the test.
Is there gonna be one of those?
That's not a test?
There will be one like this, not exactly like this, but there will be a problem like that.
So we don't have those one-handed problems when we do it the opposite way?
No, no decount. Nope.
Oh, really?
Nope. If it's not on here, it's not on the test.
Okay. I can do
This is the test, they just changed numbers. And like, you're not gonna have to do 2 completing the squares on the test, you're only gonna have to do 1. Okay? Alright, moving on. Number 9. Third root of 4a minus 1 plus 8 equals 5. So, what do I do first? Isolate the radical, minus 8. So I get third root of 4a minus 1 equals negative 3. Now what? Take it to the third power. So I get 4a minus 1 because the third root and the cube cancel. Third root of negative 3 is negative 27, or negative 3 to the third power. And just solve for a. Negative 26 divided by 4, negative 6.5, or if you left it as a fraction, negative 13 over 2. If you plug it back in, does it check? So plug it back in, negative 26 minus 1 is negative 27. Third root of negative 27 is negative 3, plus 8 is 5. 5 equals 5, so it does check. So that is the correct solution. Number 10, 3 plus square root of x plus 8.
I just gotta remember to FOIL right.
Yeah.
It's the foiling that's hard here. Yep, I would agree. So, is one radical isolated?
Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna foil, or we're gonna square both sides right away. Because there's already one by itself. So I have x plus 35 on the right. That part's done. I now have to foil the left side. First, 3 times 3 is 9. Outside, 3 times the square root of x plus 8 just becomes 3 square root of x plus 8. Inside's the exact same, 3x plus 8. And last, x plus 8 times square root of x plus 8 times square root of x plus 8 is just x plus 8. So if I simplify here, left side, 9 plus 8 is 17. plus 6 square root of x plus 8 plus x equals x plus 35. Okay? Now I need to isolate the other radical. So I'm going to, x and x are going to cancel each other. Minus 17. So I get 6 square root of x plus 8 equals 18. Get the radical by itself. Square root of x plus 8 equals 3. Square both sides. X plus 8 equals 9. So x equals 1. Plug it back in. 1 plus 8 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 1 plus 35 is 36. Square root of 36 is 6. Both sides work. So 1 is a correct solution. All right, last one. You ready? 4 plus square root of 2a plus 7 is greater than or equal to 6. First step is what? Isolate. 2a plus 7 is greater than or equal to 2. Square both sides. 2a plus 7 is greater than or equal to 4. Subtract. 2a is greater than or equal to negative 3. Divide by 2. A is greater than or equal to negative 1.5. Now, why did I not have to flip the sign there? When is the time that you have to flip the sign? Only when you multiply or divide by a negative number. We did not have to do that here. So, also, when it's greater than, you don't have to test when this is greater than or equal to 0. Okay?
Do you still put it equal to 0?
Well, you just need to see, does this work? So I get 2a is greater than or equal to negative 7. So a is greater than or equal to negative 3.5.
I know, but find the other place in the number line.
There, see, with greater than, there isn't another one. It's just one. And the reason is, these are both going the same direction. So is negative 1.5, any answer for this half always going to be bigger than that half? It is. So I don't need to worry about that half. So then I just need to pick a number. So 0. So I got 4 plus the square root of 7. Well, square root of 7 is 2.5. 6.5 is greater than 6, so you know that's true. Then all you have to do is put negative 1.5 on the number line. It's filled in and shade to the right.
Attention cross-country girls. That was David at 12:30 today. Please come to the high school to pick up.
Okay. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you want to come in during green time, let me know as well.